This is our oil pastel sphere exercise. So we're going to start with the smooth blend sphere, and you can do these in any colors, it doesn't matter. So for my smooth blend, I'm not going to use a tissue or baby oil or anything. I'm just going to blend it with the pastels. But you could use oil or your finger or a tissue to make it smoother if you want. So it's really up to you. But I'm going to be doing a red sphere, and I'm going to be adding some yellow and orange in there to do the highlights. So if you need to, look at a reference of a shaded sphere so you can get all the 5 parts, the 5 values correct. And like I said, you could do this in any color, it doesn't matter. So I'm starting with the darker, the red, and then I'm blending into it with the orange, and then I'm going to pull the orange out a little bit. So usually, remember, with oil pastels, you want to work dark to light, although that isn't always, you don't always have to follow the rules. But it's to keep the darks from getting as muddy. But I'm using the lighter ones to blend in to the darker values. And then let's speed it up a little bit. So I really kind of just go back and forth. And then I do little circular kind of motions and make sure the one color I'm using overlaps into the next. And then I do end up using a little bit of white. Remember, this is sped up double time, so you should be taking your time with this. To do the darks, I could use a dark blue or a violet in the dark. I end up using a black, which is tricky because black makes things very muddy and it doesn't really blend that well. So I added a little bit of black, and then I'm going back in with the red. So I could have used a tissue to pick up some of the extra black. I used a little bit of my fingers to smooth it out. But really, if I did this again, I probably would have used a dark blue or a dark violet. And then you want to make the shadow underneath really quick as well. And remember, your shadow is the darkest right under the sphere, and then it kind of fades out a little bit. All right, one sphere done. The next one we're going to do is stippling. So remember, stippling is little dots. So to stipple, you can kind of make marks like you're doing an apostrophe, so little straight lines. You can also do little swirls. I like to do little swirls. And then, so I'm going to do like a light blue kind of sphere. So I'm just starting by getting that light blue in places. And you want to be careful not to blend too much. You want to see all the little dots of color. But when you put your next layer of dots, you want to kind of swirl a little bit those dots with the ones on top of it. Just so you don't want to see a bunch of the white paper. You want to just see color. So you're going to do the same thing as you did with the other sphere in regards to the values. So look at a value sphere if you need help remembering where all those values go. And then just keep layering your stippling. So you can see like in the dark areas in this one, I added a dark blue and a violet. Since this is a cool sphere, I don't necessarily need to add black in there. I add a tiny, tiny bit in the bottom, but that's it. Because too much black just overdoes it. It's really a lot better to just use a really dark blue. All right, our next is Sgraffito. So for Sgraffito, you're just going to layer some colors underneath the sphere. You can make it like a shaded sphere. You can just put stripes of color. It's really up to you what you want to do. But you're going to just lay down some color. And then over the top, you're going to put a really dark value. So I just, for Sgraffito for here, I just use black. So you can see I just kind of just did a basic blue to white sphere. Blend it a little bit. So I am covering it with the black. So you have to kind of be mindful of your pressure. You want to layer it with the black, but you don't want to scrape off the oil pastel underneath either. So I'm layering it, and then I'm going to grab a toothpick and I'm going to scratch into it a design that's kind of like a cross contour around the sphere to give it that 3D form quality. So you can do anything you want with this. I have a couple examples in class that are a little bit different. But when you scratch off that black surface, those colors that you place underneath will show through. So it's a really nice way to do details in oil pastel. Our last technique is scumbling, which is probably the one I like the best. So scumbling is similar to stippling. Instead of dots though, you're just doing scribbles. So just loose, really free form scribbles. And this creates a really, really nice texture. And then again, as with the stippling, you do not want to overblend. You want to see those layers of color showing through. On this one, I do end up overblending it a little bit, but it's okay. You can always scrape stuff off with oil pastel too. But I'm taking the lighter one and going over and making those swirls on the dark to blend. Then I'm using a yellow to lighten, and then also remember if you got a different color on your oil pastel to wipe it off. So I'm taking that yellow and then bringing it down into the green. And then just a tiny bit of black. I didn't have a really darker green to use. And then the same thing. So again, try not to overblend with this. You don't want to see the paper though. So it's a fine line between overblending or not doing enough and then you see a bunch of paper. But again, that just comes with practice. So once you are done with this exercise, let me check it off for feedback. And then we will be moving on to our final project where you should be able to use some of these techniques in your work. So good job. I can't wait to see what you've done.